He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. What does that mean? In the times we live in right now, if you're moving into the spaciousness, if you practiced vedanta, which is the witness consciousness, if you practiced a form of yoga called vichara, self-inquiry, if you practiced Dr. Joe's medical meditations and you're connecting with space, if you practiced Taoism and you're connecting with the field of qi, you are dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. And so, as such, the shadow of the Almighty is upon you. So as we walk around, and a lot of you guys might know about meditations and the energy centers and working with these things, and that leads to being an empath. And one of the things I think is left out of a lot of the more modern kind of teachings, and it's all very good stuff, is that you hear a lot about protection. And you have to understand that there's varying degrees to which you are going to need protection based on your archetype. And some of you don't need it at all, but some of you might need it a lot. I'm one of those that had to learn these things. So, dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. What does dwelling mean? Dwelling is where you stay. See, your body is this temple. And so within this temple, where do you stay? Where do you dwell? Where do you go back to? You go back to the field. You go back to the spaciousness if you're practicing Vedanta. If you're practicing witness consciousness, you go back to the field of spaciousness within your body, that quiet stillness. If you're practicing Taoism, you go back to that energy field and you abide there, you rest there. And your attention throughout the day, if you're doing Dr. Joe's stuff, your attention throughout the day is on that space, in space. You're connecting with the field. That's the secret place. And so those of you who put your attention onto that secret place, that divine intelligence, whatever feels right to you, as far as naming it, conspires to protect you. And so you abide in the shadow of the Almighty, right? You are in the secret place. You are putting your attention on the divine consciousness. You are dwelling in the divine consciousness. You're out there amongst the world where the attention is always on the material, and you're doing the opposite. You're putting the attention on the non-material. You're putting your attention on the spaciousness. That attention on the spaciousness creates a field of energy around you. And so if you're an empath and you're struggling with the frequencies that are out there when you leave your house, it's important to know that there's not much to be done. A lot of stuff with protection and these kinds of things that people get into is not understanding what abiding in the shadow of the Almighty means. They're not understanding what protection actually is. And it's not something that's done with your mind. it can be you can focus your mind on a prayer or a mantra or something like that, and that might be a good idea if things are pretty heavy for you out there and you're walking around and you can just hear people's thoughts and it's chaotic and you're experiencing that level of stuff. Then it might be a good idea to have your mantra or your prayer or your thing that you refer to keep that mind busy. But with your heart, you need to dwell in that secret place. You need to connect with that secret place. And so when you do that, then those other multidimensional beings, angels, or your helpers, they can commune with you. And so all of the world around you is built to cause doubt. It's created to, within your cognition, support the doubt of what I'm talking about. Everybody out there right now, as they struggle to work through these events, is putting their attention on what they can do with the physical world. And just observe that the physical is the only thing that's temporal. Everything arises from an invisible field of non-local time and space. Everything arises from the field of chi, from prana. Everything comes from this. Everything arises from that spaciousness within you that animates this world. And so as people struggle and they strain and they stress, they want to build on this physical world. But you are saying, no, I want to build on the non-visible. I want to put my house on something that is permanent. So don't be caught in the illusion. And they're going to want to pull you into the illusion. They're going to construct a world for you that would cause you to think that you need to build on this something that is physical, that you touch. And that's the thing that's permanent. That's the thing that's going to protect you. But the only thing that's permanent is the non-visible, is the energetic atmosphere outside of this dimension from which everything arises. And so that's the secret place. When you dwell there, when you walk around throughout your day and you connect with that field conspires to protect you. And so there's varying degrees, and there's things that are going to happen to you throughout a day that may not fortify that knowledge in your head. There's going to be things that challenge your ego as to whether or not you are protected. So as far as a shamanic perspective on protection, and as far as like using sage and wood and these kinds of things, the field of energy around you has certain, could be a past pattern of your mental state, and if it's a low past pattern like self-doubt, like I was just saying, that holds a place in your field of energy. Or if you're angry or stressed, these hold places. So imagine that each one of those places where there's a pattern of mental energy, each one of those is a receptor site for a non-local, lower astral form to attach. And so what we're doing when we connect to the field and we dwell in that secret place is we're resonating a new frequency into our personal little bubble here, which changes the receptor site so that that thing can no longer attach. And so if you're working with these things, these kind of elemental things like sage and wood and crystals, some of them you may have benefit from just by their innate elemental principles. But in order to understand how to really work with them, you have to understand this idea that it is supporting you to cleanse out that receptor site, that lower energy frequencies for within your own field for these lower astral forms to connect. So if you're troubled when you go out to the stores because everybody is in the state of deception and everyone is in a state of delusion, and you are one that feels the truth and you know the truth and you're living and walking in the truth, then you have to understand that the heart is the way to elevate that energy so that that lower entity doesn't have the receptor site. So that's the power of protection. Along with it, you can surrender to the field, you can surrender to that spiritual energy that's all around you, that's the higher divine principle that organizes everything. And that's another way to do it. And as a result, once you clear out that field, you have different receptor sites. And some of those receptor sites are going to be to have communion with these higher multidimensional beings. And that will be something that you'll be guided through in a sense, but it also could be very confusing. And that's why you have to go back to the dwelling, right? Where do we stay? Where do you take refuge? So in like mindfulness meditation, like Thich Nhat Hanh style meditation, they would say we take refuge in these teachings, or we take refuge in the community. So if you don't have that available to you, you can take refuge in with this mind. This mind can take refuge in the stillness, right? You can take refuge in, if you were practicing Vedanta, self-inquiry, you could take refuge in the witness consciousness. So it folds back in on itself, right? And so the mind innately kind of panics for a little while once you hit that deep still place. But if you keep going, it will learn its place and it will feel very comfortable, actually, once it's settled into, just like a puppy, it settles into its position within this this chi bubble you have, within this mind you have. So your ordinary autobiographical self, the narrative mind, settles back into, and the attention is put on witnessing that autobiographical mind, and there's some relief there. Sooner or later, that mind will take refuge in this all-abiding observer. And so there's many ways to go about protection, but you are the one that dwells in the secret place, right? And if you are that one, then you should know that that shadow of the Almighty, that protection, is within you and all around you. And that those multidimensional consciousnesses, those angels, they are always working for you, and they're always watching over you. And so take some peace and comfort in knowing this. And stay in that place. Abide in that place when you go outside these days. Because it's those people that are putting all their efforts and coins into the basket that say that this material thing is permanent. Those are the ones that are going to suffer most. You that dwell in the secret place, that put your attention on the non-visible and can trust in that despite the evidence of the illusion, if you can do that with your heart, there's a response from the universe. And that response is to protect you, and there will be a peace. So anyway, I hope this helps.